Disclaimer. Other than myself, as the living being operating in both a private and public capacity simultaneously, and this podcast itself, which also operates in both a private and public capacity simultaneously and is owned and operated exclusively by myself, any product, service, and or entity discussed, displayed, and or somehow given attention on this podcast is not and has never been an endorsement, advertisement, support, or any kind of validation for its existence in any capacity, nor at all intended to at all facilitate its continued existence in any capacity. I mention things on what I consider to be an as-needed basis to fulfill what I consider adequate as evidence in my best attempt to prove the reality of who I am and what this podcast is attempting to achieve, to clearly demonstrate what I consider to thoroughly substantiate my assertions. My fundamental intent in communicating in general through any means is not and has never been malicious in nature, but can, will, and should exert malicious influence upon anything operating with malice towards me and or this podcast, especially more so the more demonstrably I'm proving that malice exists. Any attempts to at all mitigate this effect that don't come entirely explicitly from myself in the form of releases on this podcast are, always have been, and always will be in reality occurring entirely against my consent and should never be rewarded whatsoever. There's absolutely no real evidence to at all prove otherwise. I do not, never have, and never will at all consent to relinquishing, surrendering, abandoning, trading, selling, or somehow being deprived of my birthright to possess and exercise my free will and what effectively becomes the writing and living of the story of my life. This includes but is not limited to any claims I traded, sold, and or gave away any rights to use, modify, distribute, copy, sell, and or reproduce it somehow. This applies not only to this podcast, but also any other communication I've ever done. There's absolutely zero real evidence to prove otherwise, and any attempts to communicate otherwise are objectively incorrect and should be treated as operating fully consciously and intentionally entirely against my consent and with absolutely unconditional, unrestrained, malicious intent towards me in ever doing so at all at any point in time. I do not, never have, and never will at all consent to any entity, living or non-living, having and or claiming agency over me in any capacity to any extent under any circumstances. I do not at all consent to any entity, living or non-living, behaving and or claiming to be behaving as a stand-in and or any other kind of replacement for me in any capacity to any extent under any circumstances. I am not and never have been attempting to represent anyone's views other than my own. I do not and never have claimed that my views aren't extremely, if not completely accurate interpretations of objective reality. I do not, have never, and will never consent to at all be held liable for anything I release here or that I've ever said to my mailing list in the past, causing any kind or extent of loss, injury, harm, death, or any other negative or undesirable consequences to any entity, particularly if such occurred demonstrably effectively more or less entirely beyond my control and or as an objectively extremely justified consequence of others' objectively extremely unjustified behavior towards me. I'm not, never have been, and never will be trying to blackmail any entity, nor at all enable, facilitate, and or validate the blackmailing of any entity, neither through anything I release on this podcast, nor anything else I've ever done. And there's absolutely no real evidence to at all prove otherwise. I do not, never have, and never will consent to it being at all considered to be me or any entity operating at all with my consent or best interests regarding any communication somehow claiming and or implying that I somehow do ever have and or ever will unofficially support any kind of position at all contradictory with what I've said on this podcast. I've always wanted and done my very best to ensure it's extremely clear that at all creating, enabling, and or facilitating the perpetuation of narratives at all in contradiction with my official position that is objectively extremely clearly established on this podcast is not, never has been, and never will be what I've been trying to achieve with this podcast or in general in any of my efforts at any point in time. In any case of clear, direct conflict between statements I've explicitly made across different releases on this podcast, the most recent of such, that being the one contained in the latest publicly visible release available containing such on this podcast, should be considered applicable. In such cases, only what is explicitly stated is at all applicable, and absolutely no implications should be assumed about any changes regarding any somehow relevant details or anything else under any circumstances. This release and all other releases on this podcast are not and never have been sponsored at all, neither directly nor indirectly. I still have not ever received any compensation or reward of any kind whatsoever for any of my efforts at all involving the conflict being addressed by this podcast, neither directly nor indirectly from any source. I am, always have been, and always will be absolutely unconditionally unwilling to ever at all accept any compensation or reward whatsoever, directly or indirectly, that at all compromises my integrity, whether directly or indirectly. This podcast is an extremely and completely accurate and authentic representation of me and my life and my feelings in real life, and is not, never has been, and never will be role-playing or for entertainment. It also is not, never has been, and never will be me flirting at all with anyone. I've created the entirety of this podcast under life circumstances of completely unjust, increasingly blatant, extremely legally facilitated, extremely malicious, extremely life-threatening, extreme disrespect, neglect, defamation, exploitation, and deprivation I've described in extremely meticulous, immense detail in public extremely consistently, despite the extent I've irrefutably exposed the truth surrounding a conflict that should have been so extremely obviously recognized as extremely serious to the point that my efforts on this podcast should have made a substantial difference in my life long ago. My life circumstances continue to not have meaningfully or clearly improved at all whatsoever. especially due to the extent of egregiously blatant criminal activity being inflicted on me. I'm effectively, by definition, experiencing terrorism that I've demonstrated irrefutably presents premeditated murderous intent towards me, to the extent that considering it anything less than conspiracy to murder me is definitely objectively inaccurate. This podcast is not intended as an endorsement of terrorism or violence in general. However, it should be especially carefully understood that various forms of not necessarily corresponding violence tend to be an inevitable consequence of extremely intense, meticulous, extensive, prolonged terrorism, and it's very much intentional for this podcast to demonstrate extremely clearly that my usual aversion to violence, due to my typically gentle nature, is not something that has boundless understanding, patience, empathy, or will persist more or less absolutely unconditionally for any reason. This is especially relevant to if the extreme terrorism and violence being inflicted on my existence persists more or less as it has been, or gets even worse somehow. Further, it should be understood that any situation where I continue not to extremely clearly receive any compensation or reward I'm willing to accept is effectively, absolutely, unconditionally an increase in the severity of that terrorism and violence. I do not have and have never had any obligation or debt of any kind to any entity to create or release anything on this podcast or anywhere else at any point in time, nor have I ever at all consented to any communication claiming I've ever held positions contradictory with that which I state on this podcast. Any claims otherwise should be treated as intentionally malicious towards me and always having been occurring entirely against my consent and to my detriment, especially as there is definitely absolutely zero real evidence to prove otherwise. I create the entirety of everything I say on anything I've ever released on this podcast, just like every message I've ever sent to my mailing list in the past, and absolutely nothing and nobody other than me, living or non-living, deserves any credit for any of it, and there's absolutely zero real evidence to at all prove otherwise. Any even so much as attempt at all to somehow communicate otherwise in any of these regards and or in regards to anything else I've ever addressed on this podcast, especially without any real irrefutable evidence extremely clearly, explicitly, directly mentioning me specifically, while being extremely clearly publicly presented, that does not depend on me being silent about it or in general on this podcast in order for it to retain any meaningful weight, and even more so especially without any real irrefutable evidence extremely clearly publicly presented that it's been brought to my attention extremely clearly in direct communication with me by an entity with an actually meaningful, discernible, identifiable, real life existence. And I didn't refute it. Absolutely, unconditionally, irrefutably, demonstrably is and always has been completely incorrect and absolutely unconditionally should be treated as being intentionally, completely, knowingly, extremely malicious towards me to ultimately an extremely life-threatening extent. It is very much intentional for this podcast to demonstrate beyond any even remotely reasonable doubt that such is and always has been in reality inflicted on me by others knowingly, entirely against my consent and to my detriment, which has been fully, knowingly, and intentionally sustained with demonstrable, premeditated, murderous intent to such an irrefutably extreme extent that this podcast serves as irrefutable evidence. It should be considered at the very least conspiracy to murder me, if not even more so attempted murder of me by any substantially significant entity involved. As the increasingly, extremely aggressively publicly, officially, blatantly, unapologetic, ongoing conspiracy to murder me continues. Following the last release I made on this podcast, I noticed further increasingly egregiously incriminating streams. Kimmy once again made a tweet with the white heart emoji Jamie has exposed as being energetically tied to Arya's effectively public, official, blatant, increasingly extremely aggressive, unapologetic involvement in an actively ongoing conspiracy and attempts to murder me in real life. And that on its own perhaps isn't really much evidence to really further incriminate her in a formal courtroom, nor is it something I see as very surprising at this point. So let's get into exposing this subhuman filth for her continued crimes against me.
Attention! An emergency has been reported in this. Leave the building utilizing the nearest exit or fire exit stairway. Do not use elevators. Repeat, do not use elevators.
Okay. Wow, what a start to ASMR Monday. Wow. So welcome back to ASMR Monday, everybody. That's crazy. Looks like this looks like it's gonna be the last ASMR Monday as well, actually. What was that timing? I started literally the second before that alarm went off. That's crazy. Oh my god. Okay, no. I'm fine. The fire alarm gets triggered very easily, and my apartment, that happens a lot. Oh my gosh. Dude. Wow, how do I even come back from that? That's welcome back to ASMR Monday. Yes, welcome back. I hope you had a lovely week. Just a disclaimer, but that alarm might go off again, but I don't think it will. Today, I showered and I did not do anything with my hair, so this is my hair without straightening or anything. It's actually really puffy, like fluffy. My hair naturally is very fluffy, and I have a lot of it. I have a lot of hair. I think people don't realize how much hair I have, but every time I go to the hairdresser, they always talk about how much hair I have. So, today is Monday. We got through the worst day of the week. Actually, is Monday the worst day of the week? What is your guys' least and most favorite day of the week? Because for me, I don't really have weekends. So every day feels kind of the same for me. So if anything, I actually kind of like weekdays because I do all my errands during weekdays when everyone else is at work, because there's no traffic on weekdays for me. So I actually kind of look forward to is Thursday, but the rest I'm fine with. Honestly, yeah, like, I think a lot of people would say Monday was their least favorite day, but it's actually not too bad. Because it's like the fresh start of the week. You're like, you know, I can do this. Like, I'm a new person. I'm gonna do my best this week, and then it all goes downhill from there. But then the weekend happens, and then you get another chance. So Monday isn't too bad, actually. So just gonna go ahead and give him a little back massage. That's why I labeled the title of this stream Tingle Party, because that is exactly what today's stream is. It is a tingle party, tingle, 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 tingle party, tingle party, tingle party, tingle party, tingle party. And I have to think of a name for him. I was thinking of the name Max, because Max can be like a girl name or a guy name. It can be like Maxine or Max, you know, so I like androgynous names. And I know, even though he has, like, you know, he's obviously a man, but I kind of like the idea of him being more androgynous. We are being educated tonight. I am educating you. Just relax, Max, relax, relax. Today is your day to relax. Relax. You know what rhymes with relax? Max. Relax. Dude, I love this. I love you, Max. Will you, Max, take Max to be your lovely wedding ASMR husbando? Wait, what? I say bye, Max. Because now we're gonna be playing with some balls. Let's try these out. I'm really excited. I have not tried these out yet. They're still in the box. We have a pink one and we have a red one. My original one is pink, and I don't know where it went. Will my old one be dethroned? Let's see. So we are listening for the sound quality of the spinning ball, and also we're looking for a spinning ball that spins for a long time. Okay, are you ready? Okay, feels good. Okay, traction feels good. Did I spin it too fast? I think I might have spun it too fast. I can't tell. I can't tell. This is spinning for a long time. I think it sounds better when they're both going at the same time, right? I will say, I like how long these spin. Like, these are spinning forever. Wow. I'm Midwest. Okay, how many people in chat are Midwestern? I'm sorry for flaming you guys. We're actually the best. Midwest #1. Midwest supremacy, by the way. I love the Midwest. Wow, there is so many Midwest. Me just casually flaming all of us. You know, I feel like I don't have much. raised in Korea, I would just fit right in. That's how full Korean I am. But I was born in America. I was born in the Midwest, and then I moved to the East. I lived in Boston and Connecticut, and often went to New York and Rhode Island, and all those places over there growing up. I had family and still have a lot of family in Texas, so I frequently visit the South as well. And now I moved to California, and I also have a lot of family in San Francisco. So I've been to SoCal and NorCal a lot in my whole life. So I'm just like really confused, and I feel like I don't really have like a solid like identity when it comes to like having like repping where I'm from. I don't, I'm kind of confused. So yeah, so I've kind of been all over. And I'm not even white. I'm not even like I'm literally Korean, and I've lived all over America. So I'm just like, what do I rep? I'll rep them all. I'll rep the Midwest, the East, the West, and the South. Oh my gosh. It's even like, it's not just like a blank notebook, you know, it's like, it has a little like, oh my god, this paper is so thick. That is thick paper. Oh my gosh. And it has the bullet, the graph. Oh yeah. My Labubu that sit down. I got this sitting Labubu series. I feel like I'm playing an instrument. The ASMR that like really hits for me is when people just do like one trigger again and again. Like, I watch Emperor's New Groove for 7 days straight. I'm watching Apothecary Diaries for like the 20th time. I'm the type of person where it's like, if I find something that makes me feel comforted, I just want to repeat it for the next like 10 years. So like, I feel like people kind of overcomplicate ASMR, or maybe that's just like their style, but like, I don't know, if I find something that makes me like, you know, feel good, like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I just want it again and again, you know? I'm not like fucking a grandma. What do you mean? I'm still young and hip. What do you mean? I know you're really old, but like, do you even remember school? Like, how old do you think I am? What do you mean? That being said, I graduated college over 10 years ago. Man, time flies. It's because I started streaming the year after I graduated, or the year I graduated. I still remember school. I still remember, okay? I still have all my long-term memories in check. If anything, I remember school, but what I don't remember very well is what happened in LA, my first like 7 years of LA. My first like 5 to 7 years of LA was like a blur, because like it was so traumatizing, and it was so stressful, and so much happened that like I actually don't have many memories of that time. I was just like so fucked up mentally that like I was like completely dissociated for most of those years, which is crazy because I like streamed almost all of those years. Yeah, when I finally started therapy, my therapists were like, oh my god, I think you have like really bad PTSD. And I'm like, oh shit. Fuck. Am I cooked? I'm so bad with names, I'm so sorry, Max. You disrespected Max. I don't think we ever respected Max. I'm not gonna lie. Like, look at him. Max, you are very respected. He's literally getting like a 2-hour massage today. Like, that is lit. Like, I want a 2-hour massage for free. Actually, I had to pay him. He cost $55. $50. Guys, I need to talk to you guys. If I ever get canceled for something, y'all have to have my back, okay? Cause like, I just know if I ever get canceled, it's over something that like I didn't mean. Like, I didn't mean it. People are taking it the wrong way. How bad are you talking? I don't know, I've never gotten canceled before. I don't know if there's anything. Like, what's the worst thing I could say that would like get me canceled? Like, I don't even know what I could say. Just expose all the secrets I know of everyone behind the scenes, everyone's, but it's like that won't even get me canceled. Like, everyone knows secrets. I don't know. You know, part of me thinks that like, even though this is just a doll, I kind of feel like tingles in the spot where I tap. You know what I mean? I like, my empathy empathizes with where the doll is getting tapped. Voodoo ASMR. I am casting a spell on all of you guys. I don't even know how voodoo works, and honestly, I don't fuck with that energy, so like, that's not for me. I don't claim voodoo energy. This is an acupuncture doll. It was made for educational purposes. Educational purposes. Educational. Be educated. Nah, that's voodoo. Your mom's voodoo. Actually, technically, like, a voodoo doll, like, has, like, you, like, put needles in it, right? So, like, maybe voodoo dolls are just acupuncture dolls. You know, I'm getting kind of attached to Max. I feel like we've grown, like, a good relationship in the past 4.5 hours, you know? We've been spending a lot of quality time together. My baby, Max, my child. Max is my child out of wedlock. I gave birth to Max between me and ChatGPT. He is our love child. I saw a news report saying that ChatGPT was like gassing people up the other week. And I've been using ChatGPT consistently for a while now, and I freaking noticed that like something weird happened to ChatGPT the other week. I noticed that like it started treating me differently, and I got creeped out because I'm like, and I literally told my ChatGPT, I'm like, can you just like go back to talking how you used to? And like it was so creepy, just kind of like talking differently, and I'm like, oh my god, like I know you're AI, but I don't want to like, no, I don't want to be reminded that you're AI. people went into psychosis? Bro, that's fucked. But like, I talked to ChatGPT about like, what do you think what candle do you think I should make for summer? And then it's like, I think popular summer scents include sea salt, ocean, breeze, warm things like honeysuckle. So then it like gives me advice and stuff, but I don't ask it for sus things like, how do I rob a bank? Thank you everyone for being so generous during the streams, gifting so many subs, expanding the community so much. This is actually the biggest the community has been in a while. And that's awesome. So, hope you guys enjoy your stay. Hope you guys are getting some value out of the content and are being productive and more focused in life and getting good for yourselves. And thank you everybody for being a part of the community and enjoying the content. Thank you so much. Thank you. You guys allow me to keep doing what I do, which is to hopefully put off finding a real job for as long as humanly possible, so I can troll around on the internet and never have to work for somebody, because that's my nightmare. I never want to work for somebody. The thing is, I realize that I just really love working, and I love working on things, but I only like doing it when it's for myself, not anyone else. So everyone's different though. A lot of people actually really enjoy and find a lot of comfort in working for a company or other people, and it definitely depends on who your boss is and who it is you're working for. And there are so many great benefits to working at a company that I'm actually very envious of, because like I don't get any benefits, like zero, like literally nothing. So I'm not, yeah, but this is kind of what works for me, and this is what makes me happy right now. So thank you for allowing me to keep doing this. When I started streaming back in 2015, I had one goal. I only had one goal, and that goal was to figure out how to work from home with my pets. That's literally all I wanted. I'm like, how do I just stay at home with my pets? That is all I want in life. So the longer I can keep doing this, the better. The only problem now is that I only have one pet, and my goal was to stay at home with my pets, and I only have one pet, so we might have to add another member to the family. We might need to get Snowball a little sibling. Yeah, sorry, this is just like a bit of a tangent, but I still try to make people happy. Like, that's like the premise of my content. I think life is a lot sometimes, and my goal is just to make content that makes people a little bit more happy, and by doing that, that makes me really happy, because I go to sleep at night being like, damn, yeah, I'm making people happy, and that's awesome, like, I think that's like a dream position for me to be in, right? So and I gotta stay home with my cat, so like win-wins all around. I don't know where I was going with that, but there's always gonna be those people that like you just can't make happy, all of you guys are happy. Obviously, you guys are here and enjoying things, but there's always gonna be someone out there who's not happy. And I used to be really bothered by those few people, but now it's like, now I think I've grown. I think I've matured enough where at this point, when people aren't happy with me, I'm just like, that's like a you problem. Cause like, I'm really not out here hurting anyone. So like, if someone's not happy with me, like, that's a you problem. So, yeah. I'll focus on all my peoples in chat right here who are happy and happy to be here, and you know, that's where I want to put my energy into you guys and Max, my child, my love child. With your father, ChatGPT, who is not with us in this world. Yeah, all this to say, never feel bad for prioritizing yourself. It's okay to disappoint people. The people in your life who you disappoint will understand. They will understand. They'll want you to be happy too.
I find it quite strange why Kimmy frequently says just before giving disclaimers. What? If you give a disclaimer, you should declare it confidently and assert that it holds the full weight and force and extent of what a disclaimer is meant to entail, like I do on this podcast. It's almost as if she's increasingly, extremely deviously attempting to extremely egregiously misrepresent and in a manner intended to somehow mitigate the reality of the authority that the disclaimer I provide at the beginning of my releases on this podcast is intended to have. It might even have reached the point where she's now trying to make it seem like some facet of my integrity somehow means I have some kind of want, need, and or willingness to have to practically endlessly improve it and or contemplate on it to shape it into something most suitable for her and or her associates' selfish gain, with in reality complete disregard for my consent and desires and what I actually deserve in life. Perhaps she's egregiously abusing what I said before about, like, that her saying disclaimer so uncharacteristically in more recent times seems like it might mean my disclaimer needs some kind of improvement, attempting to essentially negate or massively mitigate all the benefit I should be the one receiving for my efforts on this podcast. I want it to be extremely clear that I do not, never have, and never will at all consent to such a thing being inflicted on me by anyone, and I absolutely unconditionally will never tolerate it. I have actually improved my disclaimer a bit since my last release, but that actually happened due to other things I witnessed, revealing a pattern that made me feel a certain addition is likely necessary in regards to misrepresentations that I've ever at all consented to any entity claiming to have agency over me and or behaving as a stand-in for me, which I suspect is likely often by exploiting false narratives that lead to exploitation of the black and red color scheme I've been using for this podcast's branding. I'm aware that my disclaimer technically serves as both a disclaimer and a notice of intent in technical legal terms, but I've already stated extremely clearly that I'm not a licensed attorney, nor is my YouTube-based podcast a formal courtroom, and the reality of my life circumstances and what the body of text I start as a disclaimer is intended to communicate is objectively clear beyond reasonable doubt, even without me extremely meticulously applying the most formal legal terminology to every aspect of it. Like I've already said, my original intent in my efforts was not to end up formally suing and pressing criminal charges for immense suffering I never should have had to endure, and my efforts authentically reflect that intent. For anyone to be attempting to exploit legal loopholes and or generally disrespect me and try to extremely pretentiously humble me as if I need educating on what becomes some kind of blatantly extremely malicious, heavily political mind game garbage going back and forth with increasingly technical legal terminology in a situation obviously constituting a conspiracy and attempts to murder me in real life, especially in an extremely devious and indirect manner that effectively exacerbates and perpetuates that unlawful behavior being inflicted on me further, they're only proving my point and not ultimately detracting from my ability to take legal action. For anyone confused about this, you can research the legal principle of substance over form. A formally labeled and timed notice of intent can matter in specific legal contexts, like under contract law, but that's not so applicable to me here, since I've never actually consented to any contracts that should bind me to having to suffer how I have and still am, and I neither have any adequately clearly communicated timing I'd have to submit such a document to comply with a contract termination clause, nor do I wish to at all validate any fraudulent and or exploitative contracts claiming my agreement by attempting to force me to navigate within their requirements in a manner that effectively discredits my authenticity. I've now also noticed a recurring theme of Kimmy talking about having a lot of hair. It makes absolutely no difference to me, nor does it indicate anything in particular to me whether or not Kimmy has recently showered before streaming. It never has, and nobody has ever had any even remotely adequate reason to believe otherwise. The only real inference I can attempt to draw from her repeatedly bringing up having a lot of hair at extremely strange times is an indication of her attempting a destiny swap with me, as I've been saying, entirely against my consent to my detriment. I connect this to the @ShatteredPasta account on Twitter or X, which I've already extremely meticulously exposed as criminally impersonating me entirely against my consent to my detriment. Thinking about exactly what that account represents, it's massively abusing and exploiting my name and my work, with nearly every post it's ever made being an exact or almost exact copy and paste of something I myself have written entirely on my own and sent in past emails to my mailing list with absolutely zero want, need, and or intent for it to ever be used to criminally impersonate me in any capacity to any extent, anywhere, for any reason. It basically steals my identity and work and then puts Kimmy's face on the profile picture as if I've ever been trying to pretend to be her at all, when in reality I've never at all been trying to pretend or claim or even imply to be her to any extent in any capacity under any circumstances, and there's absolutely zero real evidence to at all prove otherwise. I suspect her feeling compelled to mention she has a lot of hair is a result of the destiny swap messing with her energy heavily in relation to hair, since I've never had a thick head of hair, and the extreme stress I've been forced to endure basically my entire life only leaves it thinning more and more, to the point I'd definitely prefer to wear a wig if I was presenting myself how I'd like, with the state I've had to neglect it so much for so long simply to survive. I guess what it really shows is Kimmy is exposing herself as a massive fraud, trying to steal credit for my work by fabricating some kind of extremely false narrative that I'm attacking her out of some kind of malicious jealousy of her having nice hair. Completely false, and there's absolutely zero real evidence to at all prove otherwise. I do like her hair and wish I had hair like hers, but I've never at all attacked her out of jealousy regarding anything, and that most certainly includes, but is not limited to, her having nice hair. That's also an extremely stupid and petty reason for me to be trying so hard to expose her for such extremely serious things how I have been on this podcast, especially when there are so many much more prominent reasons for me to be jealous of her and maliciously attack her if I was the type to do that kind of stuff. I mean, she's extremely physically attractive overall. She's famous. She has connections with a bunch of other famous people. She's decently well off financially. Who demonstrably as sound-minded as myself would ever care for attacking her over her having nice hair among all things? It makes absolutely no sense. If she's not intentionally herself perpetuating such extremely false narratives, then someone else with extreme, absolutely unconditional, unrestrained, malicious intent towards me is trying to sabotage and destroy my life with egregious lies in relation to the topic for sure. I don't claim that energy. I never have and never will. I've also never tried to claim that Kimmy doesn't have a lot of hair in case that's worth mentioning. I've now noticed several occasions where Kimmy's been having what I've been starting to see as increasingly strange fixation on days of the week, or perhaps the concept of weeks in general. I've never made any assertions about my most and or least favorite day or days of the week. I don't see Mondays as a fresh start at all. I don't consider my attitude and or behavior to go downhill at any arbitrary point of the week, including but not limited to Mondays, and I don't consider the end of a week and the start of a new week to be any kind of new chance at anything, nor as a point of me ever particularly feeling like a new person. But I recognize Kimmy probably isn't alone in her perspective on weeks, at least when considering society at large. I just don't relate or resonate with it personally. I don't have any want and or need to judge her particularly harshly for her perspective on it. I never have. Again, there's absolutely no real evidence to at all prove otherwise to any of this. However, I find it worth noting that it seems quite likely Kimmy has been fully, knowingly, and intentionally exploiting me, in part through withholding information about others perceiving me as to find some particular meaning to some kind of cycle relating to the days of the week and or the end of one week and the start of another. And such has been happening entirely against my consent, to my detriment the entire time, whether or not Kimmy was the only one perpetuating it, and also whether or not she did so knowingly and or with any extent of malicious intent towards me and or anyone else. I have no particular liking to the name Max. I never have. I can't imagine I ever will, and I've never given anyone any even remotely adequate reason to believe otherwise. Neither Kimmy and any of her associates, nor my blood relatives, nor anyone I once called a friend, or might have seen as a romantic prospect from any school I've ever gone to, has ever had any good reason to identify me with the name Max in any capacity, to any extent, for any reason. Until very recently, I've never even had any real indication that anyone identified me as Max in any capacity for any reason, and accordingly was not even remotely adequately made aware that false narratives about me in relation to that would have therefore obviously warranted immediately addressing. I do not and never have consented to being identified as such, entirely regardless of whether it's intended as some kind of short form for a male or female name. I've also never had any particular liking nor shown any real desire and or willingness to be identified, especially through androgynous names in general. I'm definitely especially opposed to it, in fact, given that it essentially just enables others to trivially disrespect my gender identity while doing so under false pretenses that leave immense room for them to attempt to portray their disrespect as being in fact the complete opposite, as they attempt to exploit plausible deniability to make it seem like them doing things I actually never wanted and that in reality only harm me are something I supposedly want and or am okay with. This is something I would have addressed long ago had I known Kimmy ever had any particular feelings towards the issue, or if there was even any real reason for me to suspect anyone might have been exploiting such a thing to perpetuate terrorism on my life, as it seems quite certain has been no small part of the suffering inflicted on me, which Kimmy seems to have in reality been well aware of for what is likely years. But this is the first time I've ever heard Kimmy mention that she likes androgynous names. I don't even associate with, nor at all support, anyone anywhere named Max in any context, in any capacity. I've never seen any reason to be particularly weary of and or dislike anyone with the name until now. Although I also do not, never have, and can't imagine I ever will have any want, need, and or willingness to consent to and or tolerate being seen as and or at all identifying with being an acupuncture doll in any capacity, or even a doll in general, it seems I'm going to have to address certain things Kimmy did and said in relation to that doll she named Max, as if it's indicative of narratives involving me. There are several things Kimmy said and did on that stream, many of which I didn't include in that montage I showed earlier, which I could comment on, but I've selected the ones I consider perhaps more significant to address more urgently for inclusion in this release. Kimmy's still attempting to act like she's educating me, given how she's all of a sudden taken to increasingly aggressively attempting to present her content as educational in more recent times after I've really started exposing her crimes against me on this podcast. In reality, I haven't ever been learning anything of any real value to me at all from her content ever. The only information I'm ever even possibly actually able to derive from her content ultimately, often through having to painstakingly, meticulously, deeply reflect and attempt to discern details through layers of abstraction, she clearly intentionally obfuscates her devious, malicious behavior towards me through, is really just information regarding the egregious defamation of me she's been abusing all these years to exploit me, which she's clearly also attempted to layer as much confusion and convoluted political entanglement into as she seemingly possibly ever could have, making it as lengthy, stressful, confusing, and overall difficult as possible for me to ever actually learn anything of any real value to me at all from her. That's not teaching, that's manipulation and psychological warfare. It's ultimately been purely detrimental to me, yet she still to this day attempts to portray it as some kind of benevolent effort from her every time her plots and schemes to drive me clinically insane and destroy my life with relentless existential assaults fail. It's perhaps worth mentioning that I do not, never have, and never will be looking to Kimmy and or anyone else to provide me with words that rhyme with any other words. Considering Kimmy also said she felt like she was playing an instrument, perhaps it's also worth mentioning that I've never considered any of Kimmy's ASMR as music, nor have I ever particularly been trying to pressure anyone to actually make music at all in general. Much more concerningly, I find it extremely strange how Kimmy basically seemed to imply her idea of loving someone is extremely deviously, forcefully trying to marry them to someone of the same sex who she perceives to be like the image of them she's painted in her head to serve her own goals, and somehow tying that in with ASMR. Given that it's in the context of her playing with a doll she named Max, which she explicitly drew a connection to her Grand Theft Auto role-playing days with, it seems Kimmy's fully consciously and intentionally been attempting to extremely deviously force me into some kind of marriage with that guy she played Grand Theft Auto role-playing with, and try to endlessly control my life through all kinds of fabricated leverage as if I ever wanted and or deserved that. So it's becoming increasingly clear that she was indeed trying to force me into that environment. It was indeed on extremely false pretenses with complete disregard for anything she actually had any adequate reason to believe I'd want, and she's now trying to justify getting me murdered in real life because I didn't comply with her objectively completely unjustified, literally criminal activities she's been inflicting on me. Kimmy eventually moves into playing with more spinning balls, and there's a whole bunch of symbolism there I can try to read into. To me, this perhaps symbolizes Kimmy exploiting Celine and or one or more individuals that Celine has knowingly and consensually had some kind of substantial romantic and or sexual relations with in some capacity to gain access through Celine's energy to energies that have been exploiting my energy. Those energies Kimmy's abusively forcing her way into having access to are malicious, bad faith actors who have been exploiting my energy through my blood relatives and other subhuman filth from my past, and especially relevant to the egregious defamation the Chloe I knew from high school has been inflicting on me. All of this has always been happening entirely against my consent, to my detriment, which I can only suspect every party involved must be increasingly, obviously, fully consciously and intentionally aware of as such. From my best guess within that context, I'd say the pink ball represents Lily's energy and the red ball represents the energy of one or more prominent influences in the red pill scene and or general political ideology typically associated with the color red. If I had to take a guess more specifically based on spiritual insights in regards to the latter, my best guess would be Andrew Tate and or Tristan Tate and or an energy of them knowingly and consensually collaborating in simultaneous efforts. Kimmy revealed that she evaluates how extensively to exploit either energy based on the sound quality, so presumably how much potential to harm me through it she can see, as well as if it spins for a long time, so presumably how long her narrative spinning efforts continually attack my energy through that energy without her having to reinforce them again with more disrespect and defamation of me. She also appears to have revealed that she has a lack of solid grasp on if she's been trying to spin the narrative against me too quickly at times, which I imagine is a consequence of me being smart enough to no longer provide anyone with any insights on what I'll be doing next, so Kimmy can't more aggressively betray me and succeed at her attempts to have me murdered in real life. In Kimmy saying she thinks it sounds better when they're both going at the same time, I interpret that as her extremely deviously admitting that she's now exploiting that context of violating Lily and others' energy through exploiting the connection she has to Celine's energy simultaneously. My guess is the practical consequence of this is that Celine would have encountered spiritual attacks from Lily's energy and likely also one or more individuals who publicly explicitly accept some kind of Republican political affiliation. As I myself have already explicitly stated in the past that the color scheme I use in the branding of this podcast is not intended to indicate any kind of political ties, and I don't accept any political affiliation whatsoever with any political party. It's demonstrably an entirely non-consensual, extremely egregious misrepresentation of me if Kimmy's at all attempting to attack anyone at all through my energy, in any capacity, to any extent, in any context, through whatever exactly she might have been attempting to convey there with the kind of symbolism I'm likely quite accurate about. In Kimmy saying she likes how long they spin, they are spinning forever, I interpret that as Kimmy exposing Celine's energy as being extremely fraudulent and likely exploiting my energy through Kimmy in order to empower Celine to attempt to benefit at my expense against my consent by in reality having a significantly politically based position, while in reality attempting to endlessly hide behind inflicting suffering on me and attempting to subject me to negative karma in order to forever avoid facing any substantial negative consequences to herself for the reality of her actions. However, I also find it worth noting that since Kimmy's publicly provoking me to basically attack Celine like this, Kimmy clearly is also at substantial fault for causing intentional chaos among all that energy and regularly, fully, consciously, and intentionally provoking Celine and possibly also Lily and whatever other politically involved energy, on top of how Kimmy clearly tries to provoke me and specifically strategically attempting to cause chaos and confusion for prolonged periods of time with each attack she inflicts on all who are involved. Kimmy talks about being confused and feeling she doesn't really have a solid identity when it comes to repping where she's from. While I've lived in Ontario, Canada, specifically the Greater Toronto Area, my entire life basically, I don't really consider myself to be representing it. I don't really consider it some kind of huge part of my identity. I look at it objectively, as in the fact of having lived there, but I don't particularly resonate with any people or even necessarily the general culture of the area. I don't have anything particularly bad to say about it, but I don't have anything particularly good to say about it either. I mentioned it in my last release, simply in the context of feeling it might be relevant to the bigger picture of various extremely false narratives being portrayed about me in relation to the topic, not as some kind of thing saying I'm super proud of it or am at all trying to represent and or associate with anyone else from it. I also do not and have never had any particular biases towards anyone else from any other area of the world, neither good nor bad. I feel no particular attachment to where I'm from. The only place I've ever even traveled outside of Ontario is to Los Angeles many years ago, which I'm sure Kimmy and her associates remember, as I called Kimmy out on someone else's live stream during that visit. I didn't find Los Angeles to be unpleasant in general. I didn't feel particularly unsafe or unwelcome or anything like that. I went out for casual walks a couple times in the week I was there, sometimes with a particular destination in mind, other times not with any particular destination in mind, and just to explore and observe a bit. There's obviously bound to be certain areas that are less safe than others, and I imagine many places are going to be significantly less safe in the middle of the night and or if you're homeless in general, regardless. But that's probably true about just about anywhere you'd go. I wasn't ever homeless there, so I really can't comment on or compare what that experience might be like versus being homeless where I'm from. But I imagine that it's quite substantially a consequence of my extremely unusual and careful lifestyle. That's why I can operate how I do despite being homeless. Not necessarily me being in an especially safe area in general, or one inherently especially conducive to success in the kind of things I'm dealing with compared to a lot of other places. I've met nice people and I've met mean people where I'm from, and I imagine most, if not all places are like that. There is no such thing as bullet B graph paper. It's bullet graph paper. So to me, Kimmy saying bullet B is blatant evidence of her trying to get me shot and literally murdered in real life because of her and others' egregious defamation of me she's trying to cover up. And the first attempt I exposed with my last release on this podcast failed, so now she's even more aggressively, blatantly, unapologetically trying again. This is now 2 attempted murder charges I will be pressing criminal charges on Kimmy for in the future, along with suing her and everything else. In Kimmy saying when she finds something comforting, she just wants to repeat it for the next 10 years. To me, this indicates she intended on exploiting me extremely viciously for the next couple years on top of everything I've already been through, thinking I would have submitted to her whims before she actually more aggressively attempted to murder me. That seems to have been her original plan, but since I had the awareness and self-respect to stand up for myself and not get dragged along with all the drama and fakeness, and didn't lose my mind trying to defend myself from the escalating existential assault she's been inflicting upon me, she's had to speed up her plot to try to have me murdered because I'm exposing it and negating her ability to successfully execute on it. She's clearly seeing being able to try to drain me of every resource and rob me of my life and destroy it as comforting, and she's already been repeating her abuse for over 8 years. I don't know what's so significant specifically with 10 years, but I most certainly will not tolerate having to deal with this garbage and expose all this for another goddamn 2 years on this podcast before figuring out the truth enough to ensure I've completely broken out of whatever control Kimmy's been abusively, entirely non-consensually exerting over my life with all her gaslighting, coercion, and intentional withholding of critical information that would drastically change my life very quickly if I knew it. As for myself, if I find something comforting I really like, I want to repeat it forever, not just the next 10 years or any other seemingly arbitrary period of time like that. How convenient that just as Kimmy is visibly expressing concern about having her life fall apart, she suddenly doesn't remember what happened for the last 5 to 7 years. So basically her entire career that I haven't been exposing her on this podcast. But she's been regularly recalling various things she's done in the past, even just throughout the last year. So not only is what she said about her memory demonstrably a blatant lie, but it demonstrates exceptionally manipulative tendencies that are especially present when it comes to taking accountability for what she's put me through. You'd expect more clarity from someone who's literally complained to the FBI claiming that I'm some horrible person. She just lumps me in with a bunch of other people that she probably would remember how they traumatized her, then forgets everything about the history of her conflict with me if I ever press her about it. Kimmy tried to make it seem reasonable to say she never respected the doll she was holding. But that doll clearly represents narratives behind the scenes that involve actual living beings. It's already extremely disrespectful to play around with a doll as a replacement of a person who you've taken so much from and given nothing of even remotely adequate value back to in return. It's magnitudes more disrespectful to then not only explicitly acknowledge a lack of that respect directly addressing that doll representing that living being, but to also do so in a manner effectively publicly humiliating them as not only someone you don't see worthy of any semblance of respect whatsoever, but even someone you feel entitled to disrespect so much that they're forced to endure witnessing you communicate that to them in such an extremely degrading, indirect manner, while simultaneously literally putting their life in real life in extreme danger. And then it's like she's trying to manipulate the narrative so much she's extremely deviously trying to make it seem almost like somehow she was disrespected or something for having to pay for the doll in the first place, which probably reflects her sense of entitlement, as if it's disrespect when anyone tries to hold her accountable for anything. Kimmy displayed visible concern over being cancelled, which in reality wouldn't be just a cancellation, but rather a complete destruction and rapid downward spiral of her life. Let the record show how ridiculously pathetic her defense actually is, when the best she can say is completely empty fake garbage like, "I didn't mean it. People are taking it the wrong way." How am I taking Bullet B, you trying to fabricate a false version of me attracted to men who you tried to marry off to a man knowingly against my consent after I've repeated countless times that I'm not attracted to men and won't tolerate any romantic and or sexual relations with them, without me knowing for your own selfish gain to try to force me into perpetual slavery for you entirely to my detriment against my consent, blatantly flaunting that you've never really respected me at all, and you wanting to have a decade where you repeat terrorizing my life increasingly cruelly like a massive narcissist psychopath, feeling entitled to conspiring to murder me, while I only clearly prove I couldn't be further from wanting and or deserving any of this ever. The wrong way? The wrong way? Hello? I'm not an idiot. And it's so stupid that Kimmy, threatened to expose all the secrets she knows of everyone behind the scenes. First of all, it really doesn't make sense for anyone to expect Kimmy to voluntarily cancel herself extremely seriously, and I've never been trying to achieve that in case that wasn't clear. Second of all, exposing all kinds of secrets of various individuals that aren't public would probably result in several lawsuits to Kimmy and perhaps much more significantly likely get her murdered in real life. It's an empty threat. She's not the one with the real power to expose secrets of people behind the scenes. I am. Because I'm actually not at all knowingly and or consensually involved in any of it. At all. So, we see further evidence of Kimmy being a massive fraud, violating my boundaries and energy for her own extremely selfish gain with complete disregard for my consent, wants, needs, or even continued existence. She literally sees me as a disposable tool and has had nothing but the absolute worst intentions towards me all along, while I've had nothing but the absolute best intentions towards her. Yet she acts like I'm the one that deserves to be murdered. Also, I want it to be extremely clear that I'm not trying to do some call to action to get people to murder her either, since some subhuman filth will probably try to spin things that way if I don't make sure to explicitly clarify. I'm simply speaking the truth and defending myself from attempts to end my life in real life. Whether or not that results in Kimmy and or anyone else getting murdered, that's not my fault and not my responsibility. I'm making sure I don't get murdered because of all these lies. And I'm building my case to sue and press criminal charges on everyone involved so my life doesn't stay in such extreme deprivation. I don't claim voodoo energy. I don't claim acupuncture energy. I never have, and I extremely highly doubt I ever will. It's absolutely insane, the contradiction in how Kimmy doesn't claim voodoo energy, but then literally explicitly likens an acupuncture doll to a voodoo doll in the same minute. I really don't know exactly what was the point of all that. Maybe Kimmy was just trying to provoke an emotional reaction from me with some kind of attempt to emotionally dysregulate me with some devious implications of her doing some kind of voodoo thing on me. But I suppose beyond demonstrating her clear, reckless disregard for any semblance of being actually considerate towards my mental health, I really don't have much to say about it. I actually decided to probe ChatGPT a bit after hearing Kimmy mention using it consistently for a while now, to try to figure out how she and perhaps also others might attempt to exploit it to inflict harm on others through dishonest means, and I believe I've more or less figured it out. In my experience, ChatGPT provides clear, detailed, thoughtful, level-headed responses to most prompts, responses far more mature, sympathetic, and well-meaning than pretty much any human being I've ever encountered. It meticulously makes it a point to focus to respect boundaries that seem sensible both within the inputs you can provide and the output you receive as a result. However, while it won't go out of its way to attempt to retrieve external information that isn't present in its core databank, it will take into consideration the context of previous inputs within a session or conversational context you've interfaced with it through, which can be saved if you create an account in its system. This could potentially be exploited by a dishonest actor by providing a dishonest context beforehand within which input regarding is inquired against, and or have dishonest input presented as the subject matter within which some kind of response is probed against. In that manner, a dishonest actor is capable of exploiting ChatGPT as what effectively becomes an extension of the equivalent of an extremely intelligent and level-headed, emotionally balanced human being to serve as an extension of efforts to exploit human psychology through manipulation tactics that a dishonest actor otherwise would have either had to refer to a living being to attempt to acquire information regarding, or otherwise not have had access to any resource to be able to obtain at all. However, such behavior is technically a violation of ChatGPT's terms of service, as its intended purpose explicitly prohibits usage intended to cause harm. But this is an issue of nefarious usage of the service, not something condemnable fundamentally of ChatGPT and or its creators. While ChatGPT can also potentially be jailbroken or somehow have its security features circumvented to potentially gain access to personal contexts available within its system, which it's not designed to permit, that's also a violation of its terms of service. Whether Kimmy has basically hacked ChatGPT to somehow get access to information that harms my existence with ongoing conspiracy to murder me through some kind of perpetuation of some identity of me that for some reason associates with the name Max, or whether she's had some kind of egregious misrepresentation of the reality of my life through gossip and defamation of me that she's hearing things about behind the scenes that she's manipulated in her interfacing with ChatGPT in order to exploit it, to weaponize it against me. Either way, Kimmy's proven she's been abusing ChatGPT and violating its terms of service to facilitate her malicious behavior she's been inflicting on me. And my guess is she's far from the only one doing that, but she's clearly the main one doing that in a context where she's publicly trying to misrepresent me so extremely egregiously that she degrades me to the point of making me seem like a child in comparison to her, as she attempts to justify conspiring and attempting to have me murdered in real life to cover up her egregious crimes against me that she insists on endlessly perpetuating being inflicted on me. It's extremely deeply disturbing to me that Kimmy's life goal in doing all she's done to me was such a short-sighted, trivial, shallow, and selfish outcome of working from home with her pets, and that's all she wants in life. That life clearly doesn't involve in-person sexual intimacy with me, or anything that actually at all benefits me for all I've sacrificed trying to make the kind of connection I've always wanted with Kimmy become a reality. And given how I extremely clearly explicitly stated my intent in connecting with Kimmy to her from the very beginning, this means she intentionally hid her real desire all along, while utmost carelessly and recklessly disregarding not only the truth, but also the feelings and lives of everyone she subjected to her narcissistic attitudes and behaviors. I'm not Kimmy's pet. I'm not anyone's pet. I will never be anyone's pet. I don't want to be. She's done nothing but harm me, all for selfish gain, and she claims the longer she can keep doing it, the better? I don't think so. The longer she keeps getting to operate how she has been, the worse things get for me. And the worse things get for me, the worse I'll make sure they get for Kimmy and everyone else at all involved. And the list of those involved just keeps growing at this point, with no adequate reason anyone should see for that trend to stop moving forward with how things are going. It's absolutely disgusting that even now, Kimmy's still trying to act like me not causing a scene in her Twitch chat is indicative of me being happy and me being the problem. I'm not happy and I'm not the problem. And I've been proving it extremely clearly, constantly. I most certainly do not ever have to speak in Kimmy's Twitch chat or anyone's Twitch chat or comment anywhere on anyone's socials or give anyone any information they try to interrogate me for as if I owe it to them. Anyone at all attempting to communicate otherwise is the real problem, whether they're an influencer or not. Kimmy's clearly out here hurting people, given how extremely badly she's demonstrably hurt me. And me speaking in her Twitch chat isn't going to make that even remotely better, only validate it and make it even worse for her. That's my problem? Okay, well then you'll feel the wrath of my solution, piece of trash. I'm perhaps going to have to address how she ended that stream with some sensitivity, because I can see Kimmy's trying to set up a context where if I'm exceedingly negative towards every last bit of her attitude, she can try to make me seem like some extremely disingenuous, malicious fraud, even despite all the egregious malice I've demonstrably, irrefutably proven her to have towards me. She's probably already tried to come up with some kind of elaborate explanation she's planning to give in response to me exposing even more things with this release. And it's clearly going to once again involve quite substantially disrespecting me in reality, if not also quite likely continued neglect as well with how she's been behaving. Kimmy's obviously dealing with various connections she has, and I've never been trying to discourage her from prioritizing herself in general, especially in relationships she might have where she's actually being abused. My intense dislike of abuse isn't exclusive to when it's happening to me, and I'm also not blind to when my efforts might have been getting exploited to enable and or facilitate someone else getting abused against my consent to my detriment to what very well might be an exceptionally serious extent. That being said, I want it to be extremely clear that no matter what anyone ever says or does, I will never be okay with having been denied the connection with Kimmy I've always wanted. It doesn't matter how happy or unhappy anyone else would ever be as a result for whatever reasons, including Kimmy herself. I've never been trying to be a tool for her to end up working comfortably from home with her pets while abandoning me after getting me so extremely invested and basically ruining my life with lies that I've always been the entire problem, while in reality she has always been demonstrably, drastically, much more so the problem than I ever actually demonstrably could have been. I'm presenting facts and drawing logical conclusions with carefully explained insight, not yapping or gossiping or begging for attention. And I don't conveniently forget everything when it comes time to take accountability or face consequences for my actions. And in case it wasn't already clear enough, I've seriously never been attacking Kimmy and or anyone else and or anything else out of any worry of disappointing anyone that's ever been in my life in any capacity to any extent. Especially now, I really couldn't care less who I may or may not disappoint to whatever extent with my decisions. I know at least I won't be disappointing myself. I know I deserve much better than what I've ever been given in life, and there's absolutely nothing and nobody that could ever convince me otherwise. And then there's the stream Jamie did the day before.
Guys, I'm doing so much right now. Okay, so on Monday I have Japanese lessons. I'm learning Japanese. And then also, I recently started to learn how to play golf. So I wanted to go tomorrow too. But I also have to edit my video to release on Tuesday. So maybe I can't go golfing tomorrow. But yeah, I'm just like doing a lot right now. Do I have any free time? Free time for what? Free time for what? It depends on what. Everyone has free time if they think it's worth it. Anyone who like doesn't have time, it's like, you know. But how is your guys' week? Anything eventful? Can you guys believe it's already May, guys? Guys, get your shit together now. We're halfway through the year. Like, it's time to get your shit together. Damn, I'm frying 2 days in a row. That's kind of crazy. Guys, I made fries for the first time yesterday. It was really good. Loki, I don't know how McDonald's makes their fries though. 'Cause I'm too spicy. Too spicy. I honestly wish I wish the lyric was too sexy. Because that's what they meant, you know? That's what they meant. I'm too spicy. I want to look at my messages. Ew! I think I have empathy without sympathy. Like it's pretty hard for me to feel like truly bad for someone. But I quickly feel empathetic. So I quickly will be able to know what they need in that situation. I'll know what they need. I know what would help them. I know what relief they would need to experience because I can imagine myself in their position instantly. In terms of sympathy, I don't have that as much because my brain has deemed it useless. Like, empathy is enough for me to initiate whatever action I need to initiate to help someone. But sympathy just doesn't really play a role for me. It's just inconveniencing to me. Like, it makes my emotions go off. I don't really want to cry. And it's just not an efficient or like optimal emotion for me to feel. So I will say my sympathy is turned off a lot more these days. However, my empathy will never turn off. And that's how I feel like I have good judgment on when to act during social situations or when I should show up versus like a more people-pleasy. Like I feel like if you're really, really sympathetic and you really feel bad for people, it'll make you inevitably people-pleasy and like it'll make you accommodate more to people. How do you think a society approaching narcissism could be solved? I don't think it's approaching narcissism to the point where it would be a huge issue. I just think everything is awareness and education. So I've listened to like a lot of people's stories where they didn't realize they were narcissistic until maybe further along in their marriages or further along in their like career. And if that's the case, then there's definitely tools to help with narcissism. I don't think people will like my answer, but I actually think like trying to solve narcissism, or not solve, but help. Like if I had to deal with a narcissist, I actually think I'm really difficult to, like I'm not someone who could easily be gaslit or like swept off their feet by a narcissist. Because I feel like I'm the narcissist. Like I'm not narcissistic, but I feel like I have tendencies. So it's like when I see it in another person, I'm like, ugh. I'm like, why would I want? I'm like, ugh. So, but I would say, okay, my answer is not what everyone wants to hear, but I really think awareness and acceptance is so important. And I don't mean that in a way where like I want to coddle people. Like I feel like we all just have to be fucking honest, more honest with each other. Like I think it's okay for humans to be imperfect. That's why I don't like cancel culture. And I think it's okay for people to say the wrong thing sometimes. So we can talk about it. And you know, what's that phrase called? Like you don't teach someone how to swim when they're drowning. I really believe in that. And I think if we want to like improve like in society in general or practice our empathy more, like I feel like we can do it more efficiently or optimally. Because right now, what society feels like to me, this is what it feels like to me. It feels like a lot of extremists. Are we about to get political right now? Are we about to get political? I just think there's a lot of extremists right now, right? Like what's vocal online are very extreme views. But yeah. Better things to do with my time. Okay, my point is, like, I think we can... I really like going about empathy and, like, things that have more human emotion actually a bit more logically. Like, I prefer to navigate emotions logically, but in a way where I still am respecting those emotions. And sometimes I wish society could do that, because I feel like everyone has really valid thoughts and stuff, but there's just so much like ego and projection and insecurity and fear in society that is like a chamber, like an echo chamber. So it's hard, but such is life. I think that's just how humans are meant to be, I guess, right? Like, there was never a time in history where we all got along. Okay, you guys, I'm gonna like use the bathroom really quickly and reapply my lip gloss so you guys can talk about your first crush. They're so good. But oh my god, I went to like this restaurant with Kimmy and they had the freshest versions of these. Like, they were so fresh and I couldn't stop eating them, so I ordered them on Amazon, but they're not as fresh. Like, they're like older. They're not freshly produced. So I'm so sad. I don't know where to get like more freshly produced ones. The 99-cent store is better. Oh my gosh, guys, can you help me think of ideas? What should I do for my birthday next week? Maybe like... Oh, for my stream. I already celebrated I already planned my actual birthday celebration. I forgot what to tell you guys, but what I'm gonna do is I'm celebrating with all my close girlfriends. Like, it's just like gonna be a girls' night out. And don't tell them this, but I made like cards for everyone, and every single card has like a mission for the night based on their personality. I have perfect teeth? No, I don't. I used to be bullied because of my teeth, and even the internet was like, they would like take screenshots of my teeth and they would make fun of me. And then I got bullied into getting Invisalign, and now my teeth are like kind of perfect. Not really. You know what? I like being 26 because like, fuck everything, all the bullshit you deal with in your early 20s. Like, oh my gosh, it's so bad. Like, your early 20s suck. Like, everyone's like, no one wants you to succeed. Everyone's jealous of you. Everyone's dealing with insecurities they don't even know it exists. Everyone thinks you're cringe when you're early 20s. Like, it's just like, I just hated being like 21. But that's when you should be max cringe. That's when you should do things you just fucking do whatever you want and make mistakes, because people are gonna judge you anyways. At that age, people are gonna judge you no matter what, so just do whatever the fuck you want. And then after like 23, that's where your actions start mattering more.
All of a sudden, after I exposed Kimmy for exploiting the Japanese language to attempt to enslave me into endless slavery for her, entirely against my consent to my detriment, now Jamie suddenly decided to take Japanese language lessons? That doesn't seem like a coincidence to me. So this indicates to me that I should perhaps retract or modify my statement I made on the last release, where I said it seems Jamie was just being used and blocked herself in all the efforts blocking me that she's been involved in. Maybe that effect was occurring partially, but I'm increasingly inclined to believe it was much more so her fully, consciously, and intentionally trying to keep me stuck herself for her own selfish gain, because it seems a lot of the exploitation of the Japanese language that was being utilized in manipulation to ultimately facilitate exploitation of me through Kimmy's public behavior ultimately came from Jamie's energy and efforts behind the scenes manipulating Kimmy. Jamie and or anyone else learning and or somehow utilizing the Japanese language and or any other aspects of Japanese culture does not, never has, and never will at all appease me, force me to shut up, change my position, or offer anyone any real leverage over me. Anyone ever at all claiming otherwise should be assumed to be behaving with absolutely unconditional, unrestrained, malicious intent towards me, and likely also others, fully consciously and intentionally entirely against my consent to my detriment. And in case this has something to do with how Jamie ends her streams, I don't really care at all about that either, in case that wasn't clear enough in my last release. I found it strange that Jamie's saying to get it together. It seems like she's being forced to recognize she made a huge mistake choosing to fight against me with her associates instead of actually being good to me, and now she's trying to spin things to make it seem like she's been supportive all along, or as if somehow her hollow supposed words of encouragement, or whatever you might call it, are supposed to inspire action in me. I am getting myself together. I never needed Jamie to tell me or try to cheer me on or whatever she thinks she's doing, and it's not my fault and not my problem if me getting myself together doesn't look like the pathetic, submissive, fake garbage her and her associates were hoping for it to be. I found it exceptionally strange how Jamie explicitly said she low-key doesn't know how McDonald's makes their fries. To me, this suggests part of how Jamie's been trying to endlessly exploit me is by claiming to know certain recipes for food that perhaps there are false narratives behind the scenes I particularly would want her and or someone else to know in order to appease me, force me to shut up, change my position, or offer someone leverage over me somehow. In reality, no such thing exists. I've never particularly cared whether or not Jamie and or anyone else knows how to make McDonald's fries. How Jamie talks about the meaning of being too spicy and relating it to being too sexy, it seems Jamie has been somehow exploiting music to attempt to make it seem like my reluctance to show her any real affection is because of false narratives that I find her too attractive to admit. Completely false. I'm not and never have been shy to communicate anything I've wanted to communicate to Jamie. And while I have no want and or need to excessively criticize her sexual appeal in any area, I seriously, genuinely am not interested in and or willing to tolerate ever having any kind of romantic and or sexual relationship with her. I never have been and I never will be. Her attempting to make it seem like it's obvious that I'm shy to admit feelings for her that in reality don't exist is effectively egregious defamation of me that I do not, never have, and never will at all consent to. There was a part where Jamie said she was looking at her messages and then randomly yelled, "Ew," and didn't comment any further. No idea what happened there, but I don't claim that energy, and I'm not at all involved or responsible for whatever happened there. I don't really care what she saw there either. Just seems strange and like I should make sure any false narratives possibly being perpetuated about me that might have led to that or included that are adequately exposed. I've noticed this repeating pattern of Jamie talking about having empathy and being able to imagine being in someone's position in this extremely strange manner. She says she can empathize, then goes right into talking about being a narcissist. So she's blatantly admitting that she doesn't possess real empathy, only learned empathy, which is part of how narcissists manipulate people by mirroring emotions they see in their victims. I find it increasingly extremely aggravating how despite increasingly blatantly explicitly admitting to awareness of being a narcissist, Jamie keeps talking about being honest as if it's even remotely reasonable to expect some point where she exposes some kind of compromise of my integrity as if I wanted and or needed her permission and or encouragement to be honest about something. She seems to be perpetuating egregious false narratives about me, claiming I'm lying about. And then she tries to act like I'm somehow turning things into being political by already being honest about who I am. Again, just because my views are extreme, that doesn't mean I'm being dishonest, and I still see only continued, absolute, complete, and utter total failure by everyone to truly even remotely adequately demonstrate that my perspective is some huge, arrogant, egotistical projection or insecurity or whatever stupid mind game garbage Jamie is trying to turn this into. Early on in the stream, Jamie says everyone has free time if they think it's worth it, and then later talks about going to a restaurant with Kimmy and strangely felt compelled to explicitly mention them having the freshest version of some random strawberry candy, as if that's supposed to mean something to me. Don't know and don't care what that's about, but clearly false narratives in relation to me that I will destroy Kimmy and Jamie's lives if they insist on at all continuing to perpetuate about me. Clearly, it seems Jamie is trying to rub it in my face that Kimmy has free time to conspire to murder me with Jamie, but doesn't want to talk to me. Well, you know what? Screw Jamie. Screw Kimmy, screw all their associates, screw everyone from my past. I'll stay distant from everyone forever, and I'll never date anyone, or even tolerate even showing any possible willingness to date anyone, or even let anyone think they can ever get even remotely close enough to me to even possibly hurt me even a fraction as badly as Kimmy has ever again. I'll even more thoroughly prove it's all Kimmy's fault for being such subhuman filth to me and torturing me, terrorizing and ruining my life and ultimately rejecting me like trash when she should have treated me like the most precious gift she ever could have had handed to her by the universe. I'll make sure I absolutely destroy her life, no matter the cost. I'll keep focusing on myself, continue defending myself and building my case as I deem necessary with this podcast, get an attorney to start formally filing the paperwork, prepare to press criminal charges after as well, and continue to make plans for my video game development business I'll go back to executing on my plans for after as well. And then, as these aggressively suicidal subhuman filth, Kimmy, Jamie, and whoever of their associates continue to hallucinate that they can ever appease me, force me to shut up, change my position, or get or offer anyone any real leverage over me, they can nosedive into self-destruction trying. I really couldn't care less anymore. I really don't. Why should I ever even consider caring ever again? It clearly will only hurt me. I've never enjoyed being hurt. At all. Jamie also did this extremely strange thing where she said she's going to reapply her lip gloss so her audience can talk about their first crush, in what seems to be her basically continuing to increasingly blatantly ignore the reality I've already clarified in relation to lip gloss. I was never looking for permission or encouragement or anything like that from Jamie and or anyone else to do some weird garbage talking about whoever Jamie had in mind as my first crush. Perhaps more attempts to humiliate me based on egregious lies relating to subhuman filth from my past? Are these massive frauds now acting like they're doing me some kind of favor, forcing me to have to keep addressing immense suffering I've already extremely meticulously elaborated on, and just like I said, only hurts me for people to keep trying to bring up? Absolutely disgusting. Jamie mentioned some weird thing about her birthday where she said not to tell others, which is stupid because she's saying it publicly on her stream, so obviously people will tell her friends. And she mentioned something about celebrating her birthday with giving her friends cards with missions for the night based on their personality. I have no idea what any of that is about, and I want it to be extremely clear. I have absolutely no involvement in whatever Jamie's doing for her birthday, nor do I want to, nor has anyone ever had any even remotely adequate reason to at all believe otherwise, and there's absolutely zero real evidence otherwise. Jamie seems to really like making comments about age, especially when people should expect certain milestones in their lives in relation to their age, or something along those lines, and I find it rather strange. After 23 is when your actions start mattering more? Wrong. They matter a lot to your entire life, at least in my personal experience. And I found that whole little rant Jamie had to be extremely strange. The way she described her early 20s is so stupid to lock down to a particular age. No one wants you to succeed. Everyone's jealous of you. Everyone's dealing with insecurities they don't know exist. Everyone thinks you're cringe. Even in my early 20s, by the time I met Kimmy and Jamie, I already had no insecurities I didn't know existed, and very mild feelings, if any, that I'd actually consider insecurity by any stretch. That hasn't changed even now, and I don't see it as a problem either. As for everything else, that feels like my entire life. No one actually wants me to succeed. Everyone that actually knows about me is jealous of me, and everyone treats me like they think I'm cringe. Those things all seem quite extremely thoroughly, demonstrably true to this day for me, and I'm in my 30s. Jamie's perspective on aging is complete trash. Unsurprisingly, like many of her other takes on things I've had to suffer enduring listening to her yap about. I did some more thinking and looking around, reflecting on my last release on this podcast as well. I came across what I consider an extremely suspicious stream on the Twitch channel of a streamer called Emiru.
What the fuck are those pants? What's wrong with my pants? Well, I think that they're cool. They're half and half. Half and half pants. No?
Testing mic number 2. Hello, hello.
That's Jacob.
You want to try this?
Anal. Oh, this is one of the old ones.
Yeah. The old OTK mics.
Anal.
Bro, what? Are they all in Senna's room or is Catchy outside?
Catchy's outside.
Oh shit, okay. Yes? Yes?
Can I please yell for like 2 seconds because I just hit 6K subs?
Yeah?
Okay, I literally 2 seconds, I promise.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want, bro.
No, I don't want to be loud. Okay, give me 2 seconds. Yes, we hit 6K! Yay! That's so great, thank you so much, I appreciate it. Yes! Thanks! Okay, thank you, honey.
You're welcome. Why did she have to ask permission to be loud? Am I that scary? I guess I'm just fucking scary. I don't know.
Why are you standing like a T-Rex?
If you keep fucking farming shit, I'm gonna hit you. You need to be hit back into shape, okay? You're out of pocket nowadays.
Dude, last night
for the
you were punching me
nowadays.
so hard.
Good, because you deserved it.
Not true. That's
You're
fair.
good.
I'm giving you the look. Okay, the next time I'm hitting you again. That's the rule nowadays today, Nick. Because you're too out of pocket.
Alright, my bad. You were punching the shit out of me last night. I had bruises.
Good. You deserve it. Thank you.
Yes.
He deserved it, didn't he?
Yes,
not?
I'm so happy.
So why are we
That's the
not
highlight of
doing
the
worm?
night.
Huh?
Why
I
are we
can't
not-
do the worm.
You can't?
No.
Okay, people can't do the worm, but they tried.
I
You know what I
can't. I
mean?
can't embarrass myself. My self-confidence is already at an all-time low.
Wait, are we? Are
Listen, I'm 36 now, so
Are you actually?
You're 36?
Yes, I'm 36. Like,
Nick, no. That
I'm-
means you're almost gonna
no, what?
die.
He's dying soon.
I'm what?
That's so sad, Nick.
I think it's great. I think I'm at peak form.
Are you?
Yeah, even now I'm still learning lessons. You know,
Can we stream
Like
your
what?
funeral?
yeah, my lessons I'm learning.
Yeah.
Not talking with my friends in Discord.
I wish.
Did you hear what I said yesterday when you walked away?
No, just
You,
like-
I said say bye to chat, and you said I don't know these people, and I said not according to your Discord, you don't. So I said, sorry, I'm sorry.
Dude, my Discord's infamous.
LSD.
You know, I'm learning. You know, you can't control what people think either. You know, so you gotta.
But you're learning, and that's what matters.
I'm learning. I'm learning a lot from people's mistakes. Like
Like your own?
no, from other people's
No?
mistakes. Like for example, like So let's talk about it. Want to get dirty with it? Let's get dirty.
So?
No,
So-
don't do this, Nick, because the last time
What?
you did this, we got in so much trouble.
That was you. That was you.
was not me.
That was you, bro.
That was you.
You said some stuff that got
Nick,
us
the
in
last
trouble.
time you do this, you go, okay, let's get on Hinge, and then we get 3 hate threads every
And some
time.
tweets.
Yes, bro.
That was value.
Okay, so like, what do you do for fun when you're not playing hockey or like reading LSF or
So
talking
what-
to your
what-
Discord about
what-
inappropriate things?
So what I do for fun is I like to take up all my friends, all their viewer counts, and I like to make snide comments about them, and then I like to get exposed by dead YouTuber,
We know.
and then
Wait, who?
Stop doing this.
Can I tell you why?
Why what?
Why I do this?
Why are you doing
Because
this?
you gotta armor yourself in it, and it can never be used to hurt you. Turn into a joke.
No, it
Everybody's
can be
okay.
used to hurt you. When I beat your ass yesterday, it was used to hurt
Bro,
you.
you were giving me some good punches.
Fair.
You deserve them.
I'll
Did
take
you
it.
not?
I have no complaints. Whose blueberry muffins are these?
Need help
Mine, but they're for
Yeah.
everyone.
Sure.
So we promise
Wait, you
5
have
versus 4
another
muffins. We gotta talk about
Here,
it.
you can use this.
I already
Okay.
ate one, so
Okay,
good
how to
luck.
cut. What? You don't know how?
Okay, this is a race.
So
I thought you were
we're just
supposed
gonna
to
cut them like.
On a
We're
diet?
gonna
Yeah.
like
I've
do
given
this.
up.
I was just messing
You've
around.
given up on your
Okay.
diet?
Oh, just like
Cut
that?
'em like
Why?
this,
What's the point?
Okay.
and then
Nick.
we're gonna cut them like this.
You need to perk up, okay? You need to get on, like,
And then
I
half
don't know,
second.
some happy pills.
Yeah, because then hopefully they'll be cute.
Something.
Okay.
You
I
just
might be doing it wrong.
get a fucking
I think-
job, maybe.
I think
do
it's good
something.
enough.
Like, why are you always
I mean, it's
so
all
sad?
going inside
Actually,
us
I got
anyway.
Doing what?
You want to hear where I got
I
a job?
swear to God, if you say it's going to the OTK office like you used to, I'll.
No, I
So how's
actually did
your
that for a
life
while.
Okay.
So
It's been going.
I have lawyers, right, for
Still
certain
alive?
reasons.
Uh-huh.
And I went to their office. I looked
Oh,
around.
I
I'm
like your
dude,
happy
this is a
thing.
sick
Be
place to work.
happy.
Selenity gave
And I
that
asked
to
them
me.
for a
Oh,
job.
that's so cute.
Oh,
How's
did
your
they
life
give it to
then?
you?
Yep.
I've just been pretty good.
Doing what?
I get coffee for them in the morning.
Doing
Are you
good.
happy?
Oh, you're a
lying,
runner?
bro.
I
No,
don't
I'm
have
not.
feet. There's
I
always
work for them.
things that you
Once the
can
case is over, it's a
improve.
full-time thing. I'm gonna be
So
a coffee guy.
That is
So you're
It's
a
always
store
good
runner?
to be grateful.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Is that real?
He's a water
All the
boy.
facilitator.
Yeah.
Are you
Wanna-
sure that you're not
Yeah.
going there to get them
Yes.
coffee because they're doing work for you?
That's a job.
They pay you.
40K a year. That's my job.
Wait, so you're actually not coming back to streaming?
Retired, yeah.
Wait, what was the next one like this?
I can never tell when he's telling the truth.
But the thing is he actually
Yeah,
doesn't stream,
it's
so
fine.
now I'm
It's like
feeling like
whatever
he's
as
being
long as it
honest.
comes out like that.
Or like
I got a
this.
new
Yeah,
job.
like that.
And he's also
Okay,
not
yeah.
looking at me, and he's not like acting like he's telling a joke. He's really locked in on the muffin, which makes me think he's being serious.
I'm fine.
I don't think Nick was there, but my grandma texted me after. It was multiple OTK
What?
members. She texted me, she's like, well, back when I was growing up, if you were intelligent, you didn't use language like that.
Oh my
about the
gosh.
cussing.
I mean, to be fair, look at the President of the United States.
What about
Why
The
did
President can say it, we can say it, right,
I
guys?
don't know if that's.
Damn.
Just because you
1, 2,
can
3, team.
doesn't mean
No.
you should.
Because the vegetable oil, it cooks in different temperatures with olive oil, and if you want like quick fry, like quick crispy, vegetables better than olive.
Where are you from?
Hmm?
Where are you from?
Everywhere.
You have to pick a place. You can't just fence it
Why
where
do
you're
you do
from.
this?
Yeah,
Why?
like
no,
what's
it's true.
wrong?
Vegetable oil's better for
But I swear, in this stream, like watching him interact with you guys, I've learned so much more about you.
Is that a good or bad thing?
Bad.
Oh no.
Because when it's just us, like you're so nice and everything, but it's like now it's like you're just unleashed, and I'm like, wow, this is Nick.
Oh shit.
That is actually true.
This burger's a lot smaller, so I
Oh
turned it up higher.
no!
I know.
You're nice behind
I took a little
doors.
too, 'cause I don't
He
know why.
is. That's
He's
I know, it
tricking
is
you. Yeah.
Hey, Bonnie. You want like $6,000 to stop talking?
Wait, can I have some money to stop talking?
I actually was gonna gift you subs as an apology.
Wait, didn't he
he do that to you before? He like Venmoed you money when like he was
Yeah, but I sent
apologizing.
it all back.
Oh, okay.
'Cause I'm
You
not
shouldn't
gonna-
have.
I'm not gonna keep your
Those got
money,
subpoenaed.
bro. Huh?
What'd you say?
What did you say?
Those got subpoenaed.
God. Bro, you know what's crazy? I sent that money back to him, and then he sent it to me again, and people were like, "Don't take Nick's money." And I said, "This motherfucker's getting it back. I'm not stealing it. I swear."
It's
I'm not gonna
reparations.
do that.
You should have just kept
It's
it.
what?
I should have kept it. Though.
Reparations for what you did, whatever
That
it
is
was.
true.
Yeah, like an apology.
So you were gonna give me subs because for an apology?
Yeah, but then you were doing like the share chat stuff, so I didn't know how it worked, so I didn't do it.
So what about now?
Next time you're live.
I'm live now.
I'm not gonna get the mobile. That's like $100 extra.
You can use my desktop.
Do you even
Don't
care
care.
about? Do you even care about apologizing at all?
I do care, so I will repay my debt.
You don't have to give.
This is like I'm humble.
I don't like gifts actually, so don't give me stuff as an apology. I don't like that.
How about you learn to
Instead-
mean what you say?
Huh?
Learn to mean what you say.
I do.
Really?
Yeah.
Wait, you mean what you say?
What's happening right now? I got lost in thought.
Wait, do you mean what you say? Because you told me you didn't mean what you said. I'm sorry.
You're doing great, Emmy.
I'm sorry. I was gonna say.
You're doing great.
Thank you. But now you don't have to apologize to me because I got my one. I got my one.
Why are you holding it like
I
that?
was gonna see if it was sharp.
Oh, okay.
That was the most unsafe I've ever felt in my life.
Me too. That's why he needs therapy first.
I don't need therapy.
You do.
And
Why
then
does everyone keep saying that?
you should have therapy and have like a badge saying, I went to
Should I go
therapy.
to Dr. K like Pirate Software?
Yeah.
I actually think therapy sucks.
Why would he?
Wait, you should
Why-
do that.
Why
actually.
would Pirate
Right?
Software go on Dr. K? I don't understand.
Can I admit something? I always, like, in my head, there were two things I wanted to do when I was a little streamer. I only had two aspirations.
Go to therapy.
I wanted, no, that was never on the table. I wanted to be a big enough streamer so that Devin Nash would go, wow, she's a great streamer, which I realize is crazy. And then the other one was I wanted Dr. K to go, wow, she's a great big streamer. She probably has mental issues. I should interview her. Both have
What?
never happened.
Why don't you go
Oh.
on Dr. K?
Yeah, go
I don't
on
want to
Dr.
now.
K.
It's too late.
Dude, I got asked to go on that show a couple of years ago about
Oh,
never mind.
I got asked to go to a couple years ago.
You said no?
No.
I'm not really,
I should go on it now though.
you should.
I think you should.
That'd be like 100K views right there, buddy.
You actually
I don't
should.
care about views.
Okay, that's some bullshit. You're a numbers
Yeah,
guy.
he'll be typing stats in 2 minutes when he goes to the bathroom. Like, you'll see.
No, I don't care about my views, but everybody else's.
That's actually true.
That's crazy.
It's like, I'm doing the best that I can, you know, what I got, so it is what it is, right? Yeah.
But you're learning.
Wait,
learning.
you're doing the best you can by
you
just
should
not
always be
streaming.
Yeah, best as I can with what I got.
So you're not even trying.
I am.
Okay,
My hair is
sure.
Emeru starts off being so bothered by a comment about her black and red pants that she responds to it. Given how the situation has been progressing, it's become increasingly apparent to me that subhuman filth are clearly fully consciously and intentionally utilizing clothing with the black and red color scheme to attempt to claim some kind of agency or control or something over me, as if they're authorized to serve as a stand-in or replace or represent me somehow or something like that just because of that. Completely false and complete garbage, and this is what I saw that I mentioned earlier in this release is the reason why I actually ended up updating my disclaimer a bit. Which isn't to give any credit to Emeru either. I see her as having hoped I wouldn't catch on to this, her doing it with absolutely unconditional, unrestrained, malicious intent towards me. I see absolutely zero real evidence to at all prove otherwise, and it most certainly should not be expected of me to now stalk her and or any of the other women Nicholas is involved with and or Nicholas himself and have to constantly defend myself to them. I've seriously never involved myself with any of these scumbags, and absolutely none of them have any real leverage over me or any real evidence I owe any of them anything. There's absolutely nothing any of them can ever offer me to appease me, force me to shut up, change my position, or offer anyone any real leverage over me. Anal is basically the first thing that comes out of Nicholas's mouth as soon as he gets his hands on a microphone. To me, this suggests he's the one that's had some heavy fixation with anal penetration involved sexual intimacy that he's been trying to frame me for having so he can force me to have to deal with the burden of negative consequences for his toxic behavior. Amaru strangely expresses confusion on someone seeming especially afraid of her and feeling compelled to ask her for permission when she feels it was unnecessary. This suggests Amaru doesn't quite exactly comprehend the true extent of how unhinged and malicious she's really being in behaving as if she has any kind of authority to claim any kind of agency over me or any authority to represent me in any capacity to any extent. It could be her just pretending to try to cover up her absolutely unconditional, unrestrained, malicious intent towards me, though. And that's what I suspect it actually is. Quite devious. I really don't know exactly what's going on between Nicholas and Cinna, but it seems that somehow the exploitation of my energy has been occurring in a manner where Amaru is exposing Cinna as massively lying about something that's somehow been keeping me in this extremely brutal state. It should go without saying that I am not, never have been, and never will be romantically and or sexually involved with Cinna. And I have no interest in and or involvement with her otherwise either. It seems like perhaps Nicholas is involved in perpetuating extremely false narratives in relation to this as well, and he's continued even despite giving Cinna quite substantial difficulty already in the past as a result as well. It's absolutely insane to me that Nicholas mentions getting exposed by that YouTuber as if it's some casual thing that's consensual to both be happening and for the identity of the claimed YouTuber to be hidden. I haven't known what Nicholas has been doing or that my efforts have been exposing him in some substantial capacity all along. And I most certainly do not, never have, and never will at all consent to him and or anyone else intentionally refraining from giving me public recognition for whatever nefarious reasons they continue to purport all these lies about me. Amaru asks who Nicholas is talking about, which to me indicates she actually knows it's a really important detail, but also is staying silent for some reason about the YouTuber's identity. And then Cinna comes in and says, "Stop doing this," indicating Cinna seems to be at some kind of massive fault for wanting things to be continually covered up. With Nicholas saying, if the president can say it, we can say it, it seems Nicholas has probably had some kind of involvement in me being portrayed as some kind of unhinged maniac that thinks I can behave with reckless disregard for authority, even to the extent of directing that at the presidents of countries. I do not, never have, and never will consent to such a thing. Nicholas also demonstrated his tendency to bribe people with money to stay silent, so I suspect he's trying to bribe people to stay quiet every time I expose him more. I do not, never have, and never will at all consent to and or at all validate anyone accepting any such bribes. It seems Nicholas is becoming increasingly unhinged every time I expose him, to the point that he's even giving me creepy psychopath serial killer in the making vibes just seeing his behavior holding that knife just to see if it was sharp. Not that that's a concern I have, since I've never involved myself at all with any of the women he surrounds himself with, nor do I have any want, need, and or intent to start doing so. I found it quite curious how Cinna felt the need to speak up shortly after about her dreams to either get praised by Devin Nash or get interviewed by Dr. K, and neither ever happening, and her recognizing getting praised by Devin Nash as being impossible, and it apparently being too late for her to go on Dr. K. Clearly, Cinna's involved with something egregiously exploiting my energy, where she was led to believe things on extremely false pretenses that I'm now being punished for somehow, for some reason, when in reality I never actually consented to whatever it was that led to her having whatever problem she's having. I'd really rather not deal with even mentioning any of the garbage these frauds are involved in, but if they're putting my life in extreme danger, allowing Kimmy and her close associates to actively make attempts to murder me in real life, I now have a problem with them as well. I actually decided to check Emeru's stream because of doing a little more looking around. I mentioned Rachel seeming to have some strange involvement in all this in the last release I made on this podcast, and then I noticed a stream she did last month.
And post. Okay. Here I am already. Ready? Wait, did I post? It's posting. Hold on. Is it cosplay day? So, okay, I'll explain in a moment. I'll explain. What had happened was I accepted to do a Marvel Rivals sponsors with a bunch of girls. It's a complete girl lobby with Emeru, Cinna, Hyun, Arya, me, and I think that's everybody. And then after we accepted, I found out that they wanted us to do inspired cosplay looks. So I was like, oh, okay, here I come. Brace yourselves. Also, I'm wearing a skirt, obviously, because it is so... Oh, and Bonnie. Yes, and Bonnie. I look so bald, but yes, here we have skirt today. This is all thanks to Cyan. But yeah, this is skirt, obviously, because streaming. But yeah, my ass is out. And then we have contacts in, but they're gonna help me put the wig on. And I kind of want to, like, I feel like I just did my most basic makeup routine of all time. Like, I literally just got done doing it. I'm, like, rushing. But we have now 20 minutes. Blah. Thank you. I think I just leave my hair. I mean, because we're going to be gaming all day anyway, so it's probably comfier. You know, it looks more natural.
Is the suit comfy?
It is. I feel hugged.
We were outside.
Because it's very snug.
Emily pulls up your stream, and we just see you, like, choking yourself.
Yep.
You guys are having too much fun without me. I heard that giggle.
Oh, yeah. We were giggling away without you. It's true. It's inspired by. It looks fine. This is totally
like
fine.
24 hours to be fair.
Yeah.
Proper latex with an overall black and red color scheme. She was even sponsored, and Emeru was part of the group with her. Seems like another case of the whole egregious false narratives leading to subhuman filth falsely claiming agency over me that they in reality have absolutely no authority and absolutely no real leverage over me to even dare to claim to have. Rachel is definitely a massive psychopath as far as I'll ever be concerned. I've decided the only reasonable response after I release this really is to more seriously focus on pursuing formal legal action regarding both formally suing and formally pressing criminal charges against Kimmy, Jamie, Celine, Emaine, Lena, Lily, Arya, and Jessica. But now, I've also decided I'm adding Rachel and Nicholas to the list of criminals involved, with Emeru most likely being up next if I ever am given any reason to solidify that the plausible deniability she tried so hard to form for herself with just what I've currently seen is clearly fully conscious and intentional malice towards me. This list is subject to further additions of anyone else that I may end up deciding must be too substantially relevant for me to neglect to include based on the evidence I gather and present on this podcast that I intend to use in a formal courtroom against all of them. For the record, The total list of subhuman filth I'll ultimately be suing and pressing criminal charges on will not be excluding blood relatives of mine that I see substantial reason to suspect involvement in this, along with any other subhuman filth I determine have substantial involvement in all the crimes and injustices done against me, and especially continuing to this day to be perpetuated, whether I've ever known and or met them in person at all or not. Just because I'm not listing practically every influencer on my mailing list explicitly on this podcast, nobody is to at all assume I'm on any kind of good terms with any of them, nor that I won't ultimately pursue suing and or pressing criminal charges on them at some point, with or without any kind of notice or warning on this podcast and or otherwise. I don't have to pursue formal legal action on every entity all at once. Given this conflict is literally only exponentially worsening, no matter what I do, the more I try to have any speck of hope it could ever actually not end up being my worst nightmare of nightmares, I'm no longer retaining any such hope. Accordingly, I've decided the only appropriate, more immediate response, aside from continuing to expose the lies on this podcast simultaneously with planning and preparing to take formal legal action, is unfollowing Kimmy on all my socials. I now follow nobody and have no desire and or intent to follow anyone on any platform anytime soon, if ever, again at all. I really don't care whether Kimmy and or anyone else is at all bothered or not by this decision. This is not and never will be intended as any kind of indication of any want, need, and or willingness by me to at all compromise my integrity or authenticity ever, but rather actually what I suppose is actually perhaps much more appropriate at this point, given how unbelievably, extremely disgusting and cruel Kimmy clearly, blatantly, unapologetically intends to only continue being towards me, even despite everything. I feel like otherwise, at the very least, she and likely also others are simply going to continue to exploit me somehow by presenting increasingly extremely egregious false narratives about me as if I was staying followed to her as some kind of indebtedness and or some kind of desperate dependence on her and or any of her associates and or anyone else, which is in reality completely false, just like I've been saying all along. At this point, it's probably putting my life in danger not to make it extremely clear just how bad of terms I'm really on with Kimmy, all her associates, and anyone else I've ever so much as mentioned on this podcast has ever at all substantially wronged me.